Hello, hello, and welcome to GAMbIT Magazine's RuPaul's Drag Race podcast. We are the Shady Ladies. I'm Samir Roy, contributing editor to GAMbIT Magazine, joined as always by...
Hi, I'm Margot Poupard, other GAMbIT Magazine contributing editor. I feel like I should say my title or something.
I don't know, it just feels appropriate to begin everything. You gotta be professional when you start this kind of venture.
I suppose.
RuPaul's all about professionalism.
I guess.
I'm going to say up front that my reaction to this latest episode was rather heated upon first viewing, but I had just gotten out of the hospital, so maybe I could be forgiven being just a tad extreme in my reaction, but I still feel that my opinion has not changed since that time. I still feel that it was kind of a crazy, crazy result.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not necessarily who was eliminated so much as who won the final challenge. Because it's like,
Well, I would actually say, I would back it up. Not even so much... Well, the problem began and ended with Kennedy and her interpretation of the words Snatch Game. Because apparently to her, that resonates as Little Richard because he's a flamboyant person. I don't know. I forget which queen said it, but someone was like, well, who else would Kennedy play? I'm like, I don't know. Take your fucking pick. Literally anybody.
Anybody.
It's called Snatch Game.
Snatch.
It might as well be called Vagina Game if you really want to get into the nitty gritty. And I mean, are you just an impersonator or are you a drag queen?
Yeah, like, the game is female impersonation, And even if you were going to do Little Richard, I mean, Little Richard, before he was Little Richard, we're just going to go back into the herstory here, used to perform in vaudeville shows, and there was a drag character that he toured south with, and I think it was Princess Lavon was the name of that character. Now, if Kennedy had done that character, I would have been like, oh, no, that is brilliant. That is impressive. That is completely something that was unexpected, but something that, really, there's something deeper behind that choice. But this was just straight up, I don't want to put on the full drag to be a lady, so I'm just going to be a dude. And
that still makes no sense to me as a reason to not try.
Yeah, it's like the whole, and like if you're picking Little Richard because like, oh, he was so flamboyant and, he was kind of in drag. I'm like, no, but he was still a man. Like, he was still performing as Little Richard. He was still performing as a man. So I felt that was really not a justifiable choice, and it wasn't really one of those places where you can really bend the rules. I'm like, no, that is the rule. And so, like, for them to have rewarded that and, like, sort of let it go as if it wasn't a big deal was sort of like a real slap in the face to all the other queens, like, in the past seasons that they've given, like, a raw deal to for, being too masculine here, being too masculine there. I'm like, this season they told Candy Ho she was, she had a beard, basically.
They said she had a beard. That's
that was too mannish. You need to change that. Michelle Visage criticized Violet for looking too boyish in the opening challenge. Like, I was rewatching some old episodes, like some old Snatch Games, and there was Milan, who I didn't like Milan, but they criticized him for his Janelle Monáe look because it looked too boyish, and RuPaul even said the same thing. So I'm like, there was Alaska doing the challenge of the children's game show in season 5. And Milk wearing the beard, and Milk coming out as RuPaul in, like, Workroom Ru. But, like, even each of those situations, there was, like, like, maybe in Alaska's case, it was kind of breaking the rules, and they grilled her for it. But with Milk being Workroom Ru, like, Santino had a real problem with it, and I'm just like, well, the challenge, that was the place where that was kind of allowed, because the challenge was to come out as RuPaul, to come in a RuPaul look, and that is one of RuPaul's looks, and that is RuPaul, so it's fully justifiable.
Yeah.
A place to bend the rules for what you can do within this particular, veneration of drag. But I felt like in Snatch Game, that's not really an option. And I didn't feel that was a place where Kennedy could have decided to break them. Like, no, you should have gone as a female character. And some people online were like, well, like, it's not like, people went as other Drag Race contestants from past seasons, and so those were also men. And I'm like, yeah, but those characters were female characters.
Mm-hmm.
They were playing a female character, so the celebrity that they're portraying as themselves. Like, that's their female persona. So whoever is going to decide to do a past contestant is really doing a female persona, and that's what they're doing in drag. You know, so it still qualifies in my sense in that way, because that, you know, but Little Richard was performing as Little Richard. Little Richard wasn't performing on stage as portrayed in this episode of Snatch Game. That character's not a woman. That is a man. And Kennedy's, there was not even an illusion of Little Richard.
No.
It was so obviously just Kennedy in, it's like she literally just put on a wig.
A busted-ass wig and a busted-ass
mustache. I'm like, no. Little Richard's mustache is like thin, lip liner thin, like tattooed above his lip. It's not even a natural mustache anymore. That's what you should have had. And you didn't have that. You just didn't even have the look, like, and like adding, I mean, I get the shoulder pads. Yes, Little Richard had shoulder pads, and he loved to wear gold jackets.
Yeah,
but
you
that's
could
not
also
enough.
argue what other fucking female characters throughout television and pop culture history, how many of them have worn exaggerated shoulder pads? He could have been anybody off of, like, Designing Women, for fuck's sake, or like Golden Girls, for crying out loud. It's not that hard. A fucking shoulder pad look is not, to me, an iconic look.
Yeah,
unless you're doing Hillary Clinton or something in a pantsuit.
Yeah,
to me, it didn't translate, and it was so insulting that they actually made it seem like Kennedy was like debating a choice, like, oh yeah, like I'm really torn, which I was so enraged by her use of the word torn.
Like, what are you talking about? You don't even think of being Sweet Brown until, like, you brought up
Katya and Ginger bring it up, and they're like, dude,
why don't you just do that?
And
like,
I'm actually surprised RuPaul didn't even say anything in the workroom when she's like, oh, yeah, you know, Little Richard is, like, my other idea. And I'm surprised Ru didn't, like, instantly shoot that down so that it even become a thing.
Like, you could tell from the look on his face, you know, and, like, the music editing of that, you know, they have, like, the slow tick, 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 tick drum thing, you know, to tell you, like, oh, RuPaul's not pleased. And it's like, but, you know, that was really a place where I was genuinely surprised, where that was a clear manipulation to make it, you know, another one of those, like, oh, you think it's going to go south in the way we put it together here, but really everything turns out great for most everybody. Kind of like, you know, that's what they do usually. And I didn't realize that moment was really a part of that. I thought that was clearly like one of those, like, oh, this is the true one of all these other ones that lead you to believe that everything's going to go badly for everybody. It's like there's one of those lines throughout the episode that's actually true, and you got to figure out which person it's true for. And I figured, okay, well, clearly that's got to be the one that's in trouble. I mean, Little Richard? Like, I know. I just couldn't believe it. And then they were like, so, okay. I'm like, this is like the one place where you should be like least okay with it. And this is where you gave like the most latitude, like ever, really, on the show for doing boy drag. And I'm just like, that was just like, I don't know. I felt like really pissed off that was okay suddenly. I'm like, well, then what are has drag evolved to have no rules whatsoever in terms of, like, who you can be impersonating and still be a drag queen? I mean, like, Michelle Visage even said to Milan when she came out in the Janelle Monáe look, they were like, you know, this is a drag queen competition, and you're giving me drag king. Well, what the hell else was Little Richard except drag king? So it's like, if in that look he's going drag king and you're in a drag queen competition, then how is that person the winner of the drag queen competition in this episode?
I think the worst part of all of it is that poor Ginger had to share the title win of that week. I think that's the most insulting, because whatever your qualms are, and like I had issues with her Adele impersonation as well, but she's still very clearly funny and can pull off a head-to-toe look. I thought that she looked really different than she'd ever looked before. Ginger did, as dressed up as Adele. I thought she did a really great makeup job.
That was a great illusion,
She looked wonderful. Like, she really looked a lot like her. I thought she committed to the look. And, like, I thought that she had a lot of fun. But you pointed out in the review, like, she was just Ginger dressed up as Adele, which, you know, I have... And that's fine, whatever. That's in your comfort zone. But I also feel like Ginger feels like she can get away with that, since not everybody is what they would call themselves a comedy queen, and everybody's comedy is sort of uneven, and Ginger always delivers on her comedy. So I felt like it was kind of an insult to finally, like, if there was any challenge Ginger was hoping to win, it was probably going to be Snatch Game, since she considers herself to be a comedy queen. And to have to share that with Kennedy's, cheapened impression of Little Richard on a drag competition where she didn't even try. And let's just be real, like, Kennedy has been half asleep for the past couple of episodes. I have no idea what's wrong.
Seriously.
And she's been making less and less sense. Like, I mean, last week when she was trying to talk about her, like, Phoenix rising from the ashes and, like,
but it had
trying
to be crystallized, but she was a hooker or something at one point.
Yeah, and it was
like,
just so convoluted.
She clearly had no story for it.
Well,
and
she
made up this, like,
story
bullshit.
because in Untucked, she was like, I just want to put glitter on my face. And it's like, thank you. We all know that's exactly what you were doing and that you have no idea what the fuck you're doing. Like, creative vision-wise, these challenges are maybe, like, not what she's used to or, like, doesn't have certain things that she's used to having in order to create a full look. But personally, I feel like she's fucking coasting because she thinks that, like, oh, well, you know, all these other, like, younger queens that don't really know what they're doing and haven't been around and don't perform are all going to eliminate themselves. And she keeps getting fucking praised for things that I think are extremely mediocre. And I don't understand
she won that challenge when they did, like, the one that Trixie went home on.
Yeah, the
Trixie
infomercial.
was actually good in her infomercial, and she was eliminated.
Or not infomercial, I'm sorry. The Punny or Die video.
The Punny or Die video, yes, where they did, like,
They did a more, I mean, Ginger's team with Kennedy did a more, like, infomercial-y look to their video, which is why I'm thinking that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why. We got confused
Kennedy wasn't even, she wasn't that funny. Like, I would say that Candy Ho was more fun to watch than Kennedy was. And Candy Ho, you forget, is around or was at any point.
Yeah, she's already gone.
She's forgettable, but it's fine. We don't need to talk about Candy Ho right now. I mean, I'm just more annoyed for Ginger that she has to split her win with Kennedy, when very clearly Kennedy benefited from sitting next to Ginger during Snatch Game because she played a lot off of Ginger's humor. And I don't think if she had that, like, say if she was sitting next to, like, Jaden's Raven or whatever, if you had both of their shticks side by side, you want to fucking talk about repetitive, Michelle Visage. Like, she gave a bunch of crap to Jaden for always doing, like, the cute psychic thing, and I totally get it, and RuPaul warned Jaden before, was like, that's a really one-note character to try and embody Raven Simone, because all you know is, that's so Raven, she's psychic. And at first, I thought that was going to kind of be fun, but it's true. It is very one note. But so was Kennedy's fucking Little Richard thing.
It was. I'm like...
And the funniest thing that she said was that Batman and Robin hideaway with glory holes. I thought that was funny. Like a sex
club with glory holes. And I'm like, every joke was about sex. And he followed it up with the...
Yeah.
That kind of hurt, but...
Don't exert yourself.
But yeah, it was just like, that was every single line.
True!
I'm like, but you're not really doing anything there. Like,
I mean, to a certain extent, she's like, why don't you fucking be 2 Chainz?
That's like everybody's like drunken dad's Little Richard impersonation.
It was pretty cheap, but I will admit the Batman and Robin thing did get me to laugh out loud, which I thought was the funniest joke. I actually thought that was the funniest joke. But I also felt like this Snatch Game wasn't very funny. And I thought the characters were kind of weak. Sorry,
yeah,
guys.
It wasn't like the best. It was. I think it was like the least impressive Snatch Game I think I've ever seen on any of the seasons. Really, like it was really bad. Like I felt like they're like I would have liked to have seen more of Violet's Alyssa Edwards, because that was some of the other drama, was that both Violet and Miss Fame had chosen to do Donatella Versace as their character for Snatch Game if they got that far. Because most queens come to this competition prepared with a female impersonation for Snatch Game. I don't understand
emphasis
why...
on prepared. And
Kennedy came unprepared for this.
Emphasis on prepared and female impersonation. Those 2 words are bolded and italicized for you, Kennedy. I don't understand. What is your excuse? And she wants to sit back and, like, talk shit to all the fucking all the younger queens about how they don't know about drag and stuff like that. When clearly Pearl, Violet, Miss Fame, all the younger queens came prepared and had been working on their female impersonation for Snatch Game since their first audition or however long. Like, they've been working on it. And Pearl's Big Ange was fucking hilarious.
I know, and it was perfect because Pearl kind of has that, like, deep voice. Like, he likes to do that deep voice with his drag sometimes just as a joke. But this was a perfect opportunity to do it, but he was accurately portraying Big Ange, like a character who's so bizarre, I can't even believe she's real. So I was just like, the fact that, like, the taste level in Pearl is something I appreciate.
She's like a New Jersey Angeline.
Like,
remember that billboard woman that looked like a Barbie? She had the pink Corvette and the big boobs and the blonde curly hair, and she was famous for absolutely nothing except having a bunch of billboards around Los Angeles because her husband was rich. Yeah, that's who Big Ange is now.
But Big Ange was from, like, you know, like a mafia family, you know?
Yeah,
so
she was like on Mob Wives or something before, I think. But
or a relative of some aunt of somebody. But, like, I mean,
all I know is that she owns a bar called the Brass Monkey.
And I just remember, like, from the clip where she's like, you make the money, you spend the money. Like, I'm just like, oh, God, a human being sounds like this? This is really sad, although I think my voice is starting to get there myself. I could do a Big Ange impression by the end of this. But I was just so thrilled at that choice. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe somebody actually remembers Big Ange. And, like, enough people remember that person for this to be a viable character on Snatch Game. And I was just so happy that she made that choice. And the funny thing is that Violet was saying that she'd been preparing for 8 months for her Donatella. And we heard a little bit of her Italian accent, which also sounded a little bit Russian. As much as Miss Fame's did on the actual game, because Miss Fame was going to change to Teresa Caputo, the Long Island medium, which I thought
was a weird choice.
But I thought would have been funny because she's such a hilarious, like, stupidly crazy over the top character herself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, you know, the hair and the nails and, like, the look, and, like, there's just so much you could do, so many places you could go with it. You know, and I mean, maybe it would have turned into another, like, you know, a white Raven Simone. You know,
that's what I'm thinking.
I have a prediction.
Ooh, here. Okay, so you know how
I have a prediction. Kennedy is a man.
I know. Well, no one made that joke, which I'm surprised.
I know. That was like a wide open door for Jaden to take. I'm like, here's a vision.
Yeah.
That one has a penis. If you couldn't tell by the mustache.
Well, you know how I said in the review how Miss Fame should have, like, picked a persona that could have, like, incorporated some of her hilarity of love of chickens. Instead of it being Paula Deen, maybe Temple Grandin.
Oh my God, but Temple Grandin has a mental disorder.
Well, I feel
that could be very touchy to, like, incorporate mental disorder, like, physicality into your Drag Race character. That could be problematic, but I was thinking, what about the chicken lady from, like, old-time SNL? Isn't there, like, a crazy chicken lady on SNL?
All I can think of is Crazy Cat Lady from The Simpsons.
No, not Crazy Cat Lady. I know, but
that's all I can think of.
But there was a chicken lady on SNL. I felt like that probably would have been much better for Miss Fame, because then she could show off all those weird chicken characteristics and noises that she can do. I mean, it would have been, like, that would have been brilliant performance art. She could have, like, possibly won with that shit.
I totally
just
agree.
Like, you know, like, well, in that, let's finish up with that one first before we move on to Katya, because there's a whole other story there with Katya and Miss Fame that we're gonna get to. But, like, the whole, like, Donatella drama between Violet and Miss Fame was gonna change, and then RuPaul's like, well, you know, it's very nice of you, but, you know, being nice and being, you know, victorious are, like, different things, so maybe you should do what's best for you and not what's best for Violet. It's just like, okay, well, then I'm gonna do my thing. So then Violet's like, fine, well, I'll change then, I guess. Like, stir the pot, RuPaul. Do you want a spoon? It was a good line. Yeah. Multivalent, you know. I like it. Good one, Violet. But yeah, so Violet's like, well, I could do Alyssa Edwards, and she actually was pretty good as Alyssa Edwards, and now for RuPaul to be like, oh, maybe you should do that. And it's funny, because last season, when RuPaul wasn't digging Bendela Crem's vibe over doing Maggie Smith for Snatch Game, he's like, well, do you do a British accent? And he's like, well, to be honest, I don't really know how to do one. And he's like, okay. He's like, well, what are you going to do to make her funny? And he's like, oh, well, you know, since she's been around and she's been in the business for so long and this and that. And, like, RuPaul just wasn't having. He's like, who else do you have? And he's like, Alyssa Edwards. And then he's like, oh, well, let me see your Alyssa Edwards. And it was, like, not that good. And he was like, oh, well, I'm going to let you get back to work. And then Bendela Creme ended up winning Snatch Game. His, like, Dame Maggie Smith was like, it just killed everyone. Blew everyone out of the water. And so that was the thing, like, oh, well, you know, again, the choice was Alyssa Edwards because she's such an over-the-top female character.
Mm-hmm.
And Violet actually could kind of pull it off. And it worked, I think, better because I think it was better to take Violet out of her head for this because, you know, I don't know how, if she'd really been preparing for 8 months and she hadn't even gotten Donatella's accent down, then I'm not terribly confident that would have been a good Drag Race or a good Snatch Game character. So when I heard that Miss Fame was going to change it to the Long Island medium, I'm like, well, there's a, you know, Miss Fame of everybody needs to get out of her own head. I'm like, this could have been just the thing. It's like, okay, all I can do is go off of what I know about this person and filter everything that I have to say or do through that, and that's all that she has time to think about.
Mm-hmm.
It could have actually worked in her favor the way it kind of worked for Violet, because Violet didn't really have an option at this point to like, oh, I'm going to run through my 8 months of training for this, and how am I going to pick out the right thing to say? And it's like, then of course the moment's gone, Snatch Game is over, you have not made an impression. So I think it was better for her, and it probably would have been better for Miss Fame in the long run, if she had gone with that other second choice, and then nobody did Alyssa Edwards.
Well, shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Oh well, such is life. But Katya did not do a Russian character for Snatch Game, which
so
I think
bummed.
I really wanted to see. And like the fact that she was so anxious and like she was nervous about doing it, because she's like, because that's what I'm known for, and if I do it and I fail, then it's like, you know, what the hell am I? I must be a complete failure. And I'm like, she was sort of like just talking herself. And I'd been sensing this vibe about her throughout the show, like very faintly, but it's been there. This sort of self-deprecating, like putting herself down a little bit, sort of like a little bit of lack of belief. Like I've felt that in a lot of her interactions with other queens, or like little jokes here and there. And it sort of came to a head here where she didn't play a Russian character because she was afraid that she would fail at it, when it's, I mean, that's just her talking her, you know, psyching herself out completely, you know, because it's obvious from the way she entered the show that she could pull that off. She just had to, you know, pick one that really, like, she knew well, and I'm pretty sure she's got a few of those. So it was a disappointment that she didn't do that. I loved her Susie Orman, because I love Susie Orman as a character as itself. I used to actually watch that with my best friend Steph. There would just be days sometimes where we just leave that on, and I'm like, I never take your advice, but you are mesmerizing.
She actually
for some
has
reason.
some good
She has
advice.
great advice. I'm just not money competent enough to follow it. Not that I didn't disregarded the rightness of her word.
Yeah, no, she has actually
money.
some decent advice, but she's a character, that's for sure. And then I think you also have a lot to pull from.
Yes.
Given her background and all that other and just even the way that she talks, and like, I thought Katya she nailed it, but to say that I didn't want something more would be a lie. And when I say something more, I mean something Russian.
I know. But, you know, maybe there's still time for her to bust that out in some other places.
She could have been one of the members of Tattoo.
Oh, my gosh. There's so many things. You could have been
but that's just the first thing that popped in my head.
Russian gymnast? How many Russian gymnasts could you have done?
Why didn't she be the Russian gymnast whose namesake she borrowed from? That would have been funny.
Yes. Elena
or any of the
Zabalchikova.
Russian gymnasts from the 2012 Olympic team.
I know Aliyah Mustafina.
Oh my god, the saddest girl.
As the British commentators called her.
The saddest gymnast in the world.
I know. She still competes, though. She's still winning medals at World Championships, and she still got it.
Sad as fucking ever, though, about it.
Well, I mean, how much glitter was on her eyelids? It was weighing down those fucking eyes. There was no way for you to look happy with that. It was probably like a pound of glitter on each eyelid. It looked like, seriously, those girls were weighed down by their glitter. If they had just eased up on some of the makeup and accessories, you know, that they were, like, sewing into their hair or whatever, you know, maybe they would have been able to pull those, like, flips around.
But how can Mama see me all the way from Mother Russia?
My eyes must sparkle.
Sparkle.
Well, that one, I mean, she didn't look as sad as the little girl that everyone thought was going to, like, that had been, like, her successor was going to clean up at these Olympics. That little girl who had the little, like, pink button earrings.
Oh, she was sad.
Oh, my God. She was, like, the saddest little girl. She just looked defeated. Defeated. That girl, like, she didn't even try to stay on the balance beam in that event finals. And I remember they were like, I didn't even see her fight. She just, like, went right down.
She did. Like a sack of...
It was like, boom. Then
or
she's
like
I guess I'll get back up.
Sack of Russian potatoes.
It was really sad, and it's like, have not heard from her since. She's mysteriously injured.
Oh, well, that's because in communist Russia...
See, that would have been a hilarious character.
Oh, to be the little girl that finally re-enters the world from the Olympics after disappearing in 2012. She has a lot of colorful things to say about Putin.
Oh my God, but you know,
the jokes are endless, Katya. You did yourself a disservice by not being somebody Russian.
But, you know, she was really sort of going through an emotional upheaval at this moment.
Yeah.
You know, like the stress and the tension of being on the show was really weighing on her, and I didn't realize that she is in recovery. that she actually had been an
either.
alcoholic. She had been addicted to cocaine and crystal meth.
She had mentioned that in the preview videos when we were getting to know the queens, but she had mentioned it, and it kind of just seemed, and the way that, I mean, maybe it's the editing, maybe it's just
it seemed like it was part of the character.
No, the way that I read it when she said it seemed like it was something that had happened like 10 years ago, not
a
2
year
years
and a half ago.
Yeah, exactly. So the way that she had and that can be part of her like defense mechanism is to kind of play it off so it seems like it was further away so people don't worry about you now. And that's the way I took it. I was like, oh, if she was in recovery, who isn't? And, the way that I read it was just like it had happened a long time ago and now she's a drag queen and that's that. But I was surprised to hear that she was, only a year and a half into recovery. That's really, and to be on a reality show, like that's so much, that's a lot of stuff.
And there was I didn't realize that Miss Fame was also in recovery.
In Untucked, when Miss Fame gets a video message from her mom, she says something to the effect of like, I've been sober for a year and I'm so proud of your 10 years or something insane like that. I was like, God damn, that's a long time. Good for you. But yeah, I was like, the whole family, fuck, addiction is genetic to a certain extent.
Yeah, and so like that's why she pulled Miss Fame aside, or like, in the workroom, and they had to have that talk, and he just talked about not loving himself, and it was a really sad moment. Like he really had to let it all out, and he just it had been bottling up. Like I said, it was like coming out in drips and drabs.
Yeah, but I just can't believe that it took to this point for him to just be like, oh my God, all this stuff about myself. But it really just goes to show how. And
that was after he'd had the talk with RuPaul in the workroom when he was, when RuPaul's going through.
I'm addicted to anxiety.
And it's like, I hadn't thought of that.
But I also think that can be true for a lot of people, though.
But it's interesting that would have been what replaced the substances for him.
It would make a ton of sense.
And it made sense why he didn't choose a Russian character. That situation creates the most anxiety because he knows that that's his strength, but he's talked himself out of doing it out of fear of failure, out of anxiety. It's like, so maybe this will be that real breakthrough moment, and going forward, maybe she could become part of the top 3. Because I'm hoping, I didn't get that full vibe from her. I got a Willem vibe from her. She's clearly got all of it, but something happens that takes her out of the competition too soon.
Is it maybe the return of an already eliminated queen?
Who knows? Trixie. I swear it's got to be Trixie.
It has to be.
And I knew this point was coming. We all knew it was coming. Well, I don't know. I've been predicting it all along. I told you, right from that super trailer. Well, not right from that moment. I didn't predict that Trixie was going to go home and coming back from being the one chosen to come back.
Once she was eliminated, and once we got over our emotional response to that, then you were like, but I think... Not to get everybody's hopes up, but I think she comes back because RuPaul, was it last season where instead she just didn't end up eliminating anybody one week instead of bringing somebody back? Was it last season or the season before?
It was there was all this drama between, Darian Lake was having all this drama in regards to Ben de la Creme and was just sending lots of really shooting negative vibes really that poor girl's way. And Ben de la Creme hadn't really done anything to deserve that, and they were both in the bottom, and they had lip sync for their lives against each other, and they chose Darian Lake, and then RuPaul surprised everyone and kept Ben de la Creme as well and didn't eliminate anybody. So instead of bringing somebody back in an episode, he just didn't eliminate Bendela, and Bendela got saved. But then Bendela still ended up going home to Darian Lake a few episodes later. It wasn't the next episode, because usually when they bring someone back, it's almost always the Puerto Rican queen that comes back and then is eliminated that same episode that they came back. But nobody seems to be predicting online so far from what I've seen that Candy Ho is going to be that queen that's going to come back. Nobody's predicting that, and I really can't see why they would make that choice. I feel like
Candy got more than enough chances, and I think if there was going to be one queen that would possibly take Trixie's place, maybe what's her face? Du jour?
Tempest du jour. Tempest du jour.
Only because she got eliminated in the first round, and
that person almost never comes back. But she did have. She was among the funnier people who responded to why should you come back online. I think it was on either WoW Presents or like Entertainment Weekly or somewhere online. Each of the queens that had been eliminated were answering the questions, all except for Candy Ho. Candy Ho was like not reachable or whatever, but all the other queens were, and of them, Trixie and Tempest had really the funniest responses. I don't see them choosing Tempest. It just seems like a really...
Oh, yeah, totally. But I'm just saying...
It would be
that would be the only other
unhappy.
person that I feel like I didn't see it all yet.
Yeah.
Everyone else, I'm like, nah, this all happened for a reason, honey. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, but, I'm not that surprised that you're gone.
Right.
I mean, I'm surprised that Kennedy's still there.
Right?
Like, I really am, especially after last week. I was just like, really, last week you should have been on the bottom. You should have gone home for that travesty. And then this week, you didn't even play a woman on Snatch Game, and you won? I was just so pissed.
Justice for Ginger. I would be so pissed if I were Ginger. And Ginger did not seem... She seemed just totally
she and
nonplussed.
Kennedy are friends. So it was like, oh, she got to see her friend succeed, and so she was happy for that. And
she got to share it with her. But it's not fair. It's just not fair. If you want to go on, like, merit and, like, whatever, I would give it just all to Ginger. Like, I mean, just give it, like...
But I felt like, like, the top three really should have been Pearl, Katya, and Ginger.
I agree.
Really should have been the top three.
From what we saw. I mean, there
could
have been more... like you said, the Alyssa Edwards character, I wish I could have seen more. But
I wanted to see more of the Susie Orman, too.
Yeah. But they didn't get a lot of screen time, so I don't really know what that means.
Yeah, it felt really short, didn't it? It
felt like the shortest Snatch Game ever.
Like, they did not have a lot of material to work with. Like, God, we're going to have to work really hard to cut this together to make it funny.
I think it's because the characters were so blur. And,
like, it just felt like RuPaul was, like... And, like, the judges, I'm like, Michael Urie and Tamar Braxton. I mean, granted, I don't expect, like, the heights of sophistication from Tamar Braxton. I know... I just didn't expect her to have the most sophisticated sense of humor of anybody that's ever been on this show. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't surprise me that she found a lot of it funny, because it was... But Michael Urie was, like, a real comic actor. Like, an actually trained actor. And I was, like, just surprised at how much he loved, like, all these... So many... Like, he just laughed so much at Little Richard. I was just like, really? Is it that funny? Like, I'm not feeling this. I didn't think it was that funny. It just wasn't that good. But they were, like, going on like it was, like, the most hilarious thing that they'd ever seen. And, like, RuPaul was dying over it. And it's like, RuPaul's, he says, like, if you make me laugh, like, you can be forgiven for a lot if you can make him laugh. And so Kennedy made RuPaul laugh, and that was enough to forgive, like, not really doing what the whole point of the game was to me. I'm just still, like, it's still upset about that. It just still doesn't make sense to me that that's what happened.
Girl, I'm on your side.
But of course, RuPaul... But this time I noticed that RuPaul did not ask for Michelle or anyone else to help with his decision on who to bring back. Usually he's like... jokes like, I've been criticized by some... then there's a shot of Michelle, like, sort of like... coyly looking innocent off to the side or something. And he's like, you think that I've been too harsh with my criticisms, and some queens have gone home too early. So, I'm going to have you confer with Santino or something like that, and, like, tell me which queen I should bring back. Will it be? Well,
I don't think
this time it was like, I'm going to take some time to decide on this. Like, it wasn't like I need your help figuring this out. It's like, I'm just saying that this needs to be done, and I'm going to do it.
Well, I think that they're actually going to save all of that for next episode, and I'm sure it'll be milked a little bit. So I wouldn't put it out of the question just yet, because it came so close to the very end. It felt like RuPaul was like, and now I'm going to bring a queen back, so hurry up and roll the credits for next week.
Yeah, like on mine.
I thought it was like really abrupt, and I mean... Maybe it was just, like, even the Snatch Game part of it that I felt was really abrupt. A lot of the pacing of the show, save for Katya and Miss Fame's moment, I thought was a little bit more, like, I don't know, abrupt and rushed a little bit for me.
It really did.
The pacing didn't have its normal, like, unfolding of, like, certain story arcs. It was like, and this, and that, and this, and that, and she's torn, and she's not, and Rue, and blah. And then I just felt like it was over. Yeah, and then we got, like that announcement that they're going to bring back an eliminated queen, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's next week. I think they were
relying on the surprise factor of the first ever tie win for Snatch Game. Like, that was not a good surprise. So that didn't alleviate any of my desire for the usual layout of this episode when we finally get to Snatch Game. Like, I really wanted... And, it was just disappointing, most of the choice of characters. I'm like, I was just really sad that Max failed so miserably with Sharon Needles.
Oh,
and Sharon Needles wasn't upset or anything. She was just like, whatever, I'd still think... she was still happy that she did this, and she was like...
There's absolutely nothing for Sharon to be upset about, and Max was 100% respectful. It just was not anything beyond a look.
Yeah, it really wasn't. Like, well, the voice, she kind of had the voice, but yeah, like...
But I felt like it still sounded like Max.
Well, I mean, I could hear that there was, like... I could hear that he tweaked his voice to sound more like Sharon. I could discern it when I watched it.
Oh, the laugh made me want to kill myself.
But it was just that he didn't, like answer any questions with... He just didn't take any opportunity to, like, really impersonate
Max's
Sharon.
Laugh as Sharon Needles made me want to kill myself. It was, like, this weird, like... It was definitely fucking Disney. It was a Disney version.
It was just not
It
all
was
that.
so confusing, and it was hard. It was hard to watch, to be totally honest. It
made you want to see Sharon Needles, like, doing Drag Race.
It made me want to see Sharon Needles take Max out of her misery, because clearly she was miserable doing this fucking act. And Max very much cannot do comedy, is very much not a comedy queen, like, can't do, like, that impersonation, like, maybe she can be funny as herself, but...
Doesn't have the improv skills
to
do this.
God. But I will give credit where credit is due, though. I was so happy not to see another fucking group challenge. No offense, some of the group challenges have been great, but I think that having, like, 3 or 4 in a row, I got group challenge exhaustion. It was too much at a certain point, and I was really happy to see kind of, like, individual performances that I could kind of like, instead of, like, picking out an individual performance in a group that was just a train wreck and trying to find the bright side of the train wreck, I suppose, for a lack of better words. But I liked that. I liked the single, like, individual challenge where they're allowed to kind of do, like, a little bit of improving, so it's not them just being, like, line or, like, freaking out over memorizing lines or, like, becoming this character. It was just kind of like, they know the Snatch Game's coming, so they're a little bit prepared. And so they know that's going to be a little bit improved out, and they're going to be asked these questions and blah, blah, blah. So they do know they have a little bit of a backstory to it already. So I always look forward to Snatch Game for these reasons. And also, it was a very welcome break from another group acting challenge that seemed to be the common, like, maxi challenge theme for the last couple episodes. Mm-hmm. And it was just kind of getting to be a lot. Because I kind of I wanted to see people, like, do their own thing a little bit. Instead of wondering, like, I wonder what this person's act is like. Or, like, I wonder what this person would be like if they weren't, saddled down with a group that was mediocre. Yeah. You know, that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, even in our past couple podcasts, we'll do, like, our fantasy queen draft and be like, I wish Katya and Pearl and Ginger were on this team and during this exercise, and then I wish these people were on this team, and, like, just kind of imagining what those scenarios would look like. But it was also funny, since we have been doing a little bit of fantasy queen stuff for Drag Race, we did wonder aloud last week what it would look like if Max had to lip sync for her life, since we've seen her only in group challenges. We haven't really gotten to see her do her own thing, really. Yeah. And if Sharon Needles was her striking out, trying to break out of her Max shell, but do it in her own way, well, yeah, you know, we were going to find out the fucking answer to that question.
Yeah, it was not impressive. Like, the whole behavior on the runway was so weird before that, too. I was about to say, I was like, we didn't even get to talk about it in the review, but was it just me, or was she acting really weird on the runway during judging? Like, the corset was too tight or something. Did it pop open? Because she opened it. She opened. I thought I saw her open, and she's like, I'm sorry, I just had to loosen my corset for a moment. Because it went from, like, the judges' table. It went from the judges' table, and then it cut to Max, and Max's corset was already, like, popped open. I was like, did it just explode? What just happened? Yeah, I think he opened it. He was just like, I'm sorry, I had to do this. And they were like, can we get some help for Max? And then they come and, like, help him sit down on the steps, and he's, like, got his corset, like, off. Not off, but, like, open. And he starts singing a song, and they're just like, okay, I don't know what that's about. Was that from A Star Is Born? It didn't sound like A Star Is Born. Maybe another version that I haven't heard.
It sounded like a really bad Streisand impression.
Like, I wasn't sure, like, what was going on. Nobody else really did either. They're like, what is he doing?
I felt like I walked in on someone's stepmom, like, afternoon drunk or something.
Yeah, right?
Trying to cook.
We went to the matinee.
I want to see it in glorious Technicolor.
See, we weren't in American Horror Story, unfortunately. We were in Snatch Game.
But yeah, Max sort of lost it. It was kind of weird.
It was very strange.
She just totally fell apart there at the end, literally and figuratively.
And I don't see Max being the choice to come back the episode right after.
Oh yeah, no, that actually didn't even cross my mind.
It was just like, I don't see this happening. I'm
Once
really
again,
sorry about that.
Like I said, I feel like Tempest du Jour and Trixie Mattel are the only people whom and as far-fetched as Tempest du Jour may or may not be, I think they're the only people that got eliminated too early without seeing anything else that they could do. Everyone else, I feel like I've gotten a pretty good sense of what you got in store, and I'm cool.
Like I said, I predicted it when she got eliminated. I'm like, wait, there was a quote from that Super trailer.
She calls Ginger Danny DeVito or something?
No, she calls Ginger she's like, does someone of your body type prefer to be called Little Person or Beanbag Chair?
Oh, there we
something
go.
like that. And I was just like, I never saw that clip in any of Trixie's one-on-one interviews, like throughout the episodes that she was in.
Was that in the workroom? Was Trixie in drag, or was Trixie, boy Trixie? I forget.
It was as a boy.
It
was in the one-on-one interviews, like, with the color backdrop,
okay.
Where they're like dressed as a boy and they're all wearing like the same outfit.
Their little floating head interviews.
Whatever, yeah, because like Katya's wearing that like bizarre, colorful. Yeah.
I love Katya's confessional interviews because she's not looking anywhere near the camera. She's looking right at like the producer or whoever the fuck is asking her the question. She's trying to make everybody laugh, and I love.
And she's always succeeding.
Oh, yeah, no, I love it.
I love it.
I could hang out. And I love that when we were watching it with Sean, my boyfriend, the other day, he was like, Katya is my favorite. You have to tell me everything that happens to her on the show.
Everybody has to know. She's, her, oh my God, her web series, like her regrets videos.
Oh, she's so funny. And I follow her on Tumblr, Mom's Gold Teeth. Her advice is so funny. And that's where I see some of her web series too. And she did like a whole thing on her like YouTube channel that was hosted on her Tumblr where she took her outfit with the shark on her leg and did like a whole thing of like the shark actually coming out and like attacking her and her surviving like a shark attack. It was really funny. I'm doing it no justice right now.
I know, you just have to see
I'm like, Smear's giving me a blank look. That's I guess I'm not making the funnies right now.
No, it's like, but I'm in a kind of a
narco haze.
State. Yes, narco haze. Is that what we're calling it?
Trademark.
But yes, there was that. We were talking about Max though, and Trixie coming back.
Oh yeah, there.
But yeah, so like when the funny thing about me remembering that quote or her saying that and having not seen it in any of the episodes yet, in the Super trailer, the clip that they combine that comment with is of Ginger in the leather and lace outfit from the runway challenge of this episode. So it was a shot of Ginger in her white, like, sort
her
of
little
like
Elvis Presley.
Presley,
there we go.
White leather and lace look, which in Untucked, it was funny, like, Ginger just does not like Violet Blood. It's like, I really didn't expect that I was going to like your look in this challenge, but you look amazing. I loved it. And Ginger just, like, gives her, like, this, like, stank face glare.
God.
Like, what do you mean? Like, but Ginger, your runway looks haven't been that great, so it's not surprising that someone would doubt that your runway look would be that good. I mean, you're all upset. They're like, oh, I can't use my black spray. I'm like, honey, that's not working for you. You shouldn't have been using that from the beginning. So, I mean, it's logical that Violet would doubt the veracity of, the possibility of your runway look being amazing. And it was, so she had to tell you that she liked it. Maybe she could have said it a little nicer to you because you're delicate in that way. But, Jaden's look wasn't that great on the runway either. Katya looked hot, and she was doing all those dance moves outside during the smoke break.
Oh my God, it was so funny. She, like, just ended up doing, like, a handstand. Yeah. She went into full-on Russian gymnast mode in that Untucked episode. And Ginger's like, what'd you do to my leg? You broke my crotch. I can't get my leg down, Katya, I'm stuck.
Oh, yeah, because she put her leg up on the bar when she was smoking.
And she's like, she's like trying to put down the cigarette, but like get her leg. And she's like, stop it, just help me.
They told her that she looked like 45, Britney Spears at 45.
I love that. And that comment killed Katya. That was so funny.
It was actually a good Untucked, because I was like, oh my god, I gotta see this. But nobody really, like, talked any trash about the Little Richard thing.
Right.
Which surprised me. It was funny to see, just because they only called 2 people safe. You know, at this point, the safe people was a very small group, so it was just Pearl and Violet who were safe. So they were kind of chatting backstage, and it was interesting to see the 2, like, youngest queens, you know, having their young queen story arc, like, just by themselves and Untucked.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like, you know, it was a tad like, oh, we're the 2 young ones. We usually aren't alone together. Kind of like, well, we got to talk, tension. But they kind of got along. But it was still funny to see them conversing. They kind of, like, agreed on a lot of things. And Violet was like, oh, that was the only time we heard anything really about the Little Richard thing. Was Violet being like, oh, I think, you know, that Kennedy should be on the bottom. She should have already been eliminated. Like, of course, I agree also that Kennedy should also have been eliminated by now. I am always upset that she hasn't been. I don't know, and it's weird because she really, behind the scenes, she's, like, more supportive of other people. She's still a shady, but she's funnier, and she's more supportive of everybody. It's like a side of her personality that she doesn't incorporate into her stage persona, which is bizarre to me because that's so much more entertaining and likable than what she puts out for the judges and for, like, popular consumption. And I'm just like, I don't understand why you've got this switched up. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me at all. Like, I feel like you could come up with a better idea just sitting here talking to your girlfriends for anything than you do what you just decide to do for the show. It's mind-boggling to me. So I'm like, why is she being allowed to get away with this and everyone else is being called on, like, every little detail of their look? It's like, oh, when you do this is a mistake, and this is a mistake. But they let that Little Richard just go by like it was nothing. And I'm like, there was so much to call out on that. But yes, I don't know. I just don't see Kennedy
standing the test of time.
I really don't, and I don't see her, like,
I don't even feel like her personality super
up.
suits a reality show competition like this either. I don't know. There's, like, something about her personality. Like, maybe stir the pot a little bit. That's what her personality shows. But I don't know. I feel like she's just gotten really lucky.
Yeah, for real.
And that she's surrounded herself. Or maybe
with the right people. She's in the winner's crowd, so it just kind of rubs off
on her. I would agree with that.
You
She's
know,
getting a lot of praise for
being, like, less than mediocre.
I know. Not even less than subpar.
I'm just like, that's really, like, I don't understand why
not
that is
even
acceptable.
Par.
I'm like, are things that terrible that we're not seeing on this season that, like, this looks to you like greatness? Like, is everyone else that bad in person?
I don't think it's that necessarily anybody's that bad of a person, but I think that with the lack of comedy queens and, like, a lot of people just to go on their look, it can just swing day to day what the judges are going to be looking for. And so if they're tired of all these, like, high fashion looks and Kennedy's making them laugh, I guess that's all that really fucking matters. But like you said, I don't understand for being so nitpicky about certain queens' looks. I mean, maybe, and I really do think that this is maybe an actual winning strategy, which is, like, barely give them anything and then start to give them little bits and then they'll just praise you for it and then let the other people tire themselves out.
Pearl did say as much. It's like, maybe, you know, like, that's kind of how it worked out for me. Like, because I was so off to begin, like, when I started, like, when I actually started to come out of my shell, like, it, you know, it looked even that much better.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
and
obviously that's a winning strategy.
Yeah. Well, I just think that, I mean, I actually kind of liked Pearl's character kind of all the way through. I'm just glad that she's not being as shy or timid anymore and actually, like, not limiting herself or putting any restrictions on herself. Like, I feel anxious. Like, now she's, like, fully past it and she's like, yeah, fuck it, whatever. And I feel like that's kind of part and parcel of Pearl's personality as well. I'm just like, fuck it, whatever.
Maybe all the Reddit fascination is not for nothing.
Pearl is fascinating. I seriously cannot get over her big Ange. It was so fucking funny. And I really do think that, like, her and Violet are a lot funnier than they give themselves credit for. And I would even venture to say that, you know, kind of some of your complaints about Kennedy not being able to translate her backstage shade and, like, you know, kind of like the funniness of those comments to a challenge stage, I feel like Pearl and Violet actually do a good job of that. Mainly because I don't think that they think that they're that funny. So they're like, I have nothing to lose in making this joke. But I think that if they like put a little more thought into it, I think they could really give the comedy queens a super shitty run for their money, because not only can they achieve this like high fashion look, like, and they can sew, and like their makeup is on point, and like they've got these really striking, like a really striking face with incredible bone structure, Violet and Pearl, that, you know, they've worked so hard at, like, you know, how to highlight and contour that, where like I would say that some of the older queens could use like a brush up on some new makeup techniques to be brought into the 21st century a little bit. But if they just like, if Violet and Pearl could work half as hard on their comedy as they have on their fashion look, I think that they could straight kill the game. Like, you're hot and funny, like, I mean, come on.
Because that's kind of like what Katya already has. Katya has like a perfect look. She has good fashion sense. She has a good sense of humor, so it's not just cookie cutter fashion.
I feel like she could be a great host.
She's got all of those things.
There's an open chair at Fashion Police for Katya.
Seriously, they could use somebody to revive that. I mean, like, Kelly really just sort of slaughtered
I feel like she would honor the Joan spirit.
Oh, fucking Kelly Osbourne, like, she totally fucked that show in the ass, and then she, you know, just turned her back on it, even though it's the only thing that gave her, like, a semblance of a career.
Right.
And now what the fuck is she doing? Nothing, obviously. I mean, the only reason I ever watched her at all is because she happened to be on that show, and I love Joan Rivers. And I love Kathy Griffin, which is why I kept watching, and I thought that Brad guy was really cute.
But I actually also really liked Brad. I felt like he actually got fucked in this whole scenario.
True. You know, but she's still going to be an upcoming guest judge on this show.
Oh, god damn it.
Didn't they say that she was supposed to be on this show? And I'm like, oh my god. So, like, we'll have to wait for that moment to really bust out, like, all the Kelly Osbourne hatred, because I'm not a fan. I never have been.
Someone go put her ass back in the skybox and lock the door.
That's where they put her for the Oscars this year.
That's where they put her for the Oscars every year, Samir. Because no one wants to be reminded that they have to talk to Kelly Osbourne about who they're wearing.
It's like, oh god, I have to talk to one of the Osbourne people? Like, I'm just here to
It's like this process is already annoying enough.
I'm just here to be like my Hollywood A-list like personality, and like
I'm just here to like
right.
justify wearing $500,000 in jewelry for no reason.
I shouldn't have talking to Kelly Osbourne should not be part of the deal for me.
I'll do the Manny cam, but I won't fucking talk to an Osbourne. You can't make me.
It seems to be the rule, because they always do put her up in the skybox, like far away from the action, somewhere where you need binoculars.
I was gonna say, like, someone should get her a pair of opera glasses for Christmas. Looking at
she
you,
could borrow
Ozzy.
RuPaul's.
No, RuPaul actually needs them.
So that was the only bit of mistiming on RuPaul's part. You know, I did think it was funny that, like, as I was also, you know, we were commenting last week about the sort of terse interactions between Michelle Visage and RuPaul this season. And I'd been watching an episode, I think it was another Snatch Game from a previous season, I can't remember. I just remember them joking about, like, oh, you know, like, these queens, if they slip up once, it's like, you know, downhill from there. And then she's like, oh, so if you slip up once, you bring Merle back? That's what Michelle said, and I'm just like, oh. And then there was an episode where they actually did bring Merle back, and she looked noticeably upset. Their interaction this episode was a little more cleaned up. I felt like maybe they got something out of their system last week. Mm-hmm. Or yesterday in the time of the show.
Right, I don't even know.
However long it really was. But, you know, like, it seems like in that time since the previous episode, things have cooled a little bit on that front. But it was totally there. So, like, because now there's a noticeable, like, return back to, like, they're actually, like, getting along.
Yeah, I would definitely say that I picked up on a friendlier vibe this week.
And it didn't feel quite as rehearsed, so it wasn't like a pasted plastic smile kind of like, yes, I'm working with you and everything is great.
It's great, and we love each other and hug.
It's like, no, they were still being sassy with each other, only like nobody was taking it personal. You know, it was just, it felt different this week than it did last week. So, like, I don't know. Guess it worked out. We didn't see much of the pit crew this episode, though. I was disappointed. I can't. My week is not complete unless I've seen that Ginge. You know, it's so beautiful. But of course, there's a new episode of Pit Crew on the WoW Presents YouTube page, so you still get to see a little bit of him if you follow basically any Drag Race thing on YouTube. You will see a clip of that guy. They're doing their Sissy That Walk challenge. It was very entertaining. you know, Ginge isn't so bad in a pair of heels, but, you know, I like him the way he is.
Aw.
In little underpants and all red-haired.
I don't know. Well, I mean, I guess that is kind of like his natural state.
I guess so, other than when he's not doing engineering things. Like, God, it's just so not fair.
Engineering things.
He's an engineer. He has like a master's or a PhD in some kind of engineering. He's like legitimately like a working engineer. And he's like, oh, I'm just doing this for fun, basically. He doesn't really need to do this for money, I don't think.
Huh.
He just has the body and the looks and the right attitude.
That the engineering industry doesn't appreciate.
I guess they must. I would think they do. I'd be like, hell, you're going to be on every company Christmas card. Like, in these underpants. Like, everyone's going to know that you work here because I would want to advertise myself with you. And
then everybody's going to need to go to a sexual harassment seminar.
I feel like they get, like, you know, like everybody would be like, I'll find some reason to hire this engineering firm. Like, I might just need to have, like, an addition added on to my tool shed in the back. But, you know...
In addition, do you know how construction works?
No, nothing at all. Obviously, because I've never done these things. But I will find some need...
My tool shed. If you guys didn't know already, Samir doesn't use tools or have a tool shed.
Hey, I know how to use tools.
Well...
I just don't have a tool shed. And I don't actually know how to build anything. But I know how to fix things that have already been built.
Ah. I mean, yes. I can assemble IKEA furniture.
That kind of thing, you know? Like, I can fix things. But if you ask me to actually build something, that shit would fall apart. So you never have enough tools. I do need an engineer in my life to like make things like that happen.
Well, there you go. And then maybe you can amass enough tools to actually necessitate a tool shed.
Someday, when I own property.
Oh, yeah, that.
Once I've taken on the burden of property.
Well, you and your engineer can build a tiny home in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, that's what I could hire him for. He could be my tiny home designer. There we go. Like, all you got to do is save up like 30, 40 grand for the project, you know.
Yeah, it's nothing. I mean, at least compared to a house.
Compared to like an actual house. And like, you know what? I will pay you rent to rent this corner of your big backyard, rich person. Rich hippie person. I'm like, there's got to be one somewhere in the Bay Area that would let you do that.
There's definitely more than one in the Bay Area.
I mean, you got to get in there early before like the price, even for like, you know, a 200 square foot corner of a backyard starts going for $7,500 a month. Like it's some kind of 2-bedroom mission in flat or something.
The rent is just too damn high.
In the mission.
In like, just everywhere around here. But anyway, we don't need to go on a private rant about renting.
But that's why we need engineers like Gingineer.
Gingineer!
Yes, that's what I call him. I call him Gingineer.
Because, does he? I don't know what his name is. I'm sure he has one. Bryce.
Something. On Twitter, he's like, at Vicarious Bryce.
Oh, I like Gingineer way better.
Well, it's a good nickname because he's a hot Gingineer. But... There wasn't a lot of the pit crew in this episode. You had to really go to the YouTube channel, the Wapper's YouTube channel, to get your pit crew fix this week. But it's easily done, so had a good time there. But yeah, I am really, really basically expecting to hear that Trixie Mattel is going to be the one coming back next week. That's my prediction for next week. There's no real
surprise or shock or suspense kind of behind that.
I mean, one of the things, like, there was a couple, like, major things, obviously, to look forward to. Like, you know, there's always going to be that final... I don't know what they're going to do, though, because I haven't heard them really pitching a new RuPaul single this season, like they usually do. You know, usually off of whatever the new album is, there's a single that they, like, do, like, a music video thing for. They do some kind of, like, video acting thing that combines, like, the music and the dance and the singing, like... It all comes together in this challenge, and they have a ball, like a drag ball. There's a different theme for the drag ball, and that's usually when Bob Mackie comes back, because he was, you know, right there the first time Drag Race ever was a thing. Bob Mackie was there, so he's always coming back for this episode. So I'm like, I'm very curious, I guess, to see what they're gonna do instead of that music video or, you know, video acting challenge thing. Is it gonna be another song? What is it gonna be? And what is the theme for the drag ball gonna be? And who is going to be there? Like, do you think Trixie's actually going to last? Because usually the history of the show is that the person who wins Snatch Game does not win the show. Because in Season 2, it was it Tatiana? Tatiana won the Snatch Game. She got to, like, number 4. Season 3, the Snatch Game winner... Who won Snatch Game in Season 3? I cannot remember who won it in Season 3. I know in Season 4, it was Chad Michaels. In Season 5, it was Jinx. Season 5, Jinx. Season 6, it was Ben de la Creme. who was it in season 3? It's bugging me that I can't remember. But, like, you know, obviously Tatiana didn't win. The season 3 winner, I don't think, won the show. Season 4 winner did not win the show. Season 5 winner did. Season 6, no. So I think
I do not want Kennedy to win.
So I don't think... I mean, they tried to change it up this year, but, like, since I don't see Kennedy winning at all, that's just not going to happen. I mean, they've moved far beyond the Tyra Sanchez debacle. The season 2 winner that nobody really wanted to see win. Oh, season 3 winner was Stacey Lane Bryant Matthews. Definitely not the winner of that season.
God, that's a mouthful.
She was doing Monique.
Interesting.
It was very funny. Much more entertaining than the Little Richards, I thought.
Oh, dear God. We don't need to talk about that anymore.
But, yeah, like, traditionally the winner of Snatch Game does not win the whole shebang. So, it's kind of a curse for Ginger to have won it, but maybe since it was so off with her sharing with Kennedy, it doesn't affect... Because I see her as genuine top 3, like, hands down. Like, you know, she's definitely a front runner in this competition. So I think Ginger Minj is in it for the long haul, definitely at this point. I think her trouble is going to be actually at the ball. You know, when they have to create, like, 3 distinct looks. I think she's going to have problems with that. I feel like, I don't know if we've seen Katya sewing anything yet, or if it's just things that Katya has, because they haven't really had an opportunity to, like, make outfits, it seems. Doesn't it seem that way?
I haven't seen any sewing. It seems like everybody came with some, like, their trunks packed with all of their different outfits.
Because, yeah, there's not been a lot of, like, oh my god, I can't sew. Maybe because everybody can sew and everybody came with a really good drag closet. Like, we haven't heard any drama about people, like, what are they going to wear? The only people we've been hearing it from is Kennedy. She never knows what the fuck she's going to do because she has no fucking ideas, apparently. It's just bizarre to me. I'm like, how did you get this far and not be prepared for anything? And all these other people are like, it's like they've run this racetrack a few times already by the time they got here.
Yeah. I'm wondering when Kenny's going to start repeating looks.
I mean, I don't even know why she packed that chicken outfit and how that didn't get called out.
Did she? I mean, yeah. I have nothing.
Nothing. It just makes no sense to me. My mind is scrambled by many things right now, so I'm afraid this is probably the good time to sign off. Because it was a very confusing and sort of downtrodden week for the Drag Race fan. But some people loved it, and, you know, kudos to you, and more power to you. I'm happy that you enjoyed it more than I did.
More than we did.
Because I was not having it. We were not having it. And I expect that this is, like, you know, it's just unfortunate that, like, you know, the lull episode of the season happened to be the Snatch Game episode.
I know.
Because every season has that kind of lull.
Really?
But no, every show.
Oh, do you think the Snatch Game, though, in the past for Drag Race is a lull?
It's never been the lull.
It's always been the high point for me.
Yeah, this is the first time that the Snatch Game episode has really been the lull episode. I was like, ooh, instead of the lull episode.
Yeah.
It was a lull. I was just like, I was really sad that it happened here. Well, there's nowhere it can go but up from here for me. So
Same.
I anticipate something much more entertaining next week. And who do you think is, like, really up next for elimination?
I'd say hopefully Kennedy, and if Jaden doesn't get her shit together, Jaden.
Yeah, because Jaden had a lip sync for her life again.
That's not, second time is not a charm. I mean, winning it's not boding well for you, because if the third time you get called down there, you're going to go by way of Candy Ho.
Yeah, because it's usually, like, at some point, it's like, you know what, you've been in this position so many times that, like, there's only so many times that I can bring you back for just being good at the lip sync. You know, at some point, you have, like, if you've proven that you're not good at any of these different kinds of challenges, eventually, they're not going to keep you around no matter how good you are in the lip sync. I mean, usually it's a really good fight when it gets to that point. Like, whoever they had to go up against is equally good. So it's never been, like, a case where, like, oh, this person was better, even though they should have already been eliminated, and they've done this 3 times before. You know, like, at this point, this person should go, but they were still better in the lip sync. Like, no, it's usually equal at that point. So I was at least happy to see that, you know, it was the second time Jaden had to do it, and she was better than Max. So, but if she's in it a third time, like, I think she's gone.
That's the kiss of death, yeah.
I mean, Coco did it 4 times in season 5. I mean, it was just like, oh my god, finally she was gone. It took forever. It was like trying to exterminate a cockroach. You know, like you just like she survived. She was so fierce. She was such an amazing performer, and like, you know, as bitchy and unlikable as she may have been in so many other ways, like it was that, you know, you can't totally knock her because that fire that she displayed in even her unpleasant moments was like she knew how to bring that to her performances when she needed to. So I would pay to see her still, even though she was a total bitch in that show, and it took forever for them to finally eliminate her, even though she sucked at so many different things in the show. So I'm like...
So is that who Kennedy is?
Well, Kennedy's not as unlikable as Coco. Kennedy's also not as much as a drama queen as Coco was. Coco was very much like, it's all about me, and everything's terrible, and blah, blah. You know, it's like everything is an attack on me, and it was just an excuse for her to, like, go on about herself. Kennedy's not really like that. So Kennedy's not annoying in that way. It's just that she's not as great as they're making her out to be, and I think other people are really putting forth more effort and doing more and not getting the praise that they deserve in comparison. But that's not really what upsets me about Kennedy. It's just really the lack of energy and like the lack of like creativity is just really bothering me. And that the best of her personality is never shows up in the challenges or in front of the judges. It's always backstage, you know, with other girls. So I don't have high hopes that it's going to change next week. So I think it's possible that she may be in the bottom 2 next week. And who could possibly be there with her? I'm just like trying to imagine who else at this, because it's hard at this point. Like trying to imagine. I think you're right. I feel like Jaden and her like are the obvious choices.
Mm-hmm. Those are the only 2 right now to me that are.
They seem the weakest.
Yeah.
Even though, I mean, Jaden obviously has more in her. I feel like there's more in Jaden that we want to see.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also the possibility that Trixie is
going
to get the curse of the comeback girl.
Yeah.
Where she goes home the episode she's brought back. Maybe she won't be able to get into the swing of things right away. So that's also a possibility. You know, but it could be like a total surprise. What if that would be a surprise if Ginger was on the bottom. I mean, but at this point, we just name everybody that's left and say that they're a possibility because it's possible.
It's all possible, pretty much. So, on that note, we'll let you debate your own predictions for who will be eliminated next week and who the comeback queen might be. But we all know it's Trixie. We all know.
I would bet everything. That would be a real shock if it wasn't.
Yeah. Let's just say it'll be more of a shock if she doesn't come back than if she does.
I'd be really, 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 really surprised. Sirens.
Okay.
Sirens gone. But yes, I would be tremendously shocked if that's not what happens. I really can't imagine it being any other way. So, I mean, I intend to collect on those bets next week.
Mm-hmm.
And until then, I bid you all adieu.
Do you want to leave your Twitter handles?
My Twitter.
Whatnots?
Nobody ever understands it. It's at Samir
Okay, we don't need to then.
At Samir Miraculous. Samir Miraculous. Imagine if it was one word. At Samir Miraculous on Twitter and at Samiracles on Instagram. And of course, you can find our other pieces on the GAMbIT Magazine website. You can also catch us on our YouTube channel at GAMbIT Digital. Let's see. You can also, of course, follow Margot on Twitter at Margs She Wrote. Isn't that right?
Can.
What
yes.
about your Instagram handle, honey?
Oh, that's
private. Oh, please, whatever. Someone's gonna find it someday.
You can go ahead and find it then.
I'm gonna publicize it.
Don't.
I'm gonna put it in the next review.
But we do have other plugs. We will be having a good bad movie review podcast coming up in the very near future called Double Feature. So make sure that you keep an eye out for that. And once we have more details to share, we'll share them. Obviously, we're not withholding whatsoever.
Not at all.
You should know that by now. If anything, we're oversharers.
Definitely. It's hard to stop talking sometimes, but I guess you just have to. I have to move on to other things occasionally.
Yeah, same here. So, until next week.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Bye.
Bye.